Malcolm X, A Life of Transformation. Malcolm Little was born on May 19, 1925, in Omaha, Nebraska, into a world that didn't want him to survive. His father, Earl Little, was a Baptist preacher and organizer for Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association. His mother, Louise, was a homemaker who struggled to hold their family together. The Ku Klux Klan threatened them before Malcolm was even born, forcing the family to relocate to Milwaukee and then to Lansing, Michigan. When young Malcolm was 6 years old, his father was found dead on the trolley tracks, his body nearly cut in half. The authorities called it an accident. The Little family knew better. They believed white supremacists had murdered Earl Little for his activism. Louise tried to keep the family afloat, but the Great Depression and the trauma of losing her husband took their toll. By 1939, she suffered a mental breakdown and was institutionalized. Young Malcolm and his siblings were scattered into foster homes. Young Malcolm was a bright student at Mason Junior High School, one of the few black children in a predominantly white school. He excelled academically and was even elected class president. But when he told his English teacher he wanted to become a lawyer, the man who claimed to like him responded, "That's no realistic goal for a boy like you. You need to think about something you can be. Why don't you plan on carpentry?" That moment shattered something in young Malcolm. If even the people who supposedly cared about him saw him as less than human, what hope was there? He dropped out of school after 8th grade and moved to Boston to live with his half-sister Ella. In Boston's Roxbury neighborhood and later in Harlem, young Malcolm discovered a different world. He worked as a shoeshine boy, soda jerk, and railroad porter. He straightened his hair with lye in painful conch processes, wore zoot suits, and dove headfirst into street life. He dealt drugs, ran numbers, and eventually turned to burglary. The hustler they called Detroit Red seemed destined for an early grave. Instead, at age 20, he went to prison. In February 1946, young Malcolm was sentenced to 8 to 10 years for burglary. It was a harsh sentence, especially compared to what his white accomplices received, but it saved his life in ways he couldn't have imagined. Behind bars at Charlestown State Prison and later Norfolk Prison Colony, Malcolm underwent his first transformation. His brother Reginald introduced him to the Nation of Islam and its leader, Elijah Muhammad. The nation taught that white people were devils, that black people were the original people of Earth, and that only through separation could black Americans find freedom and dignity. Malcolm embraced these teachings with the fervor of a convert. More importantly, he discovered education. He copied an entire dictionary by hand to improve his vocabulary. He read everything he could find: philosophy, history, religion. He learned about the horrors of slavery, the exploitation of colonialism, and the ongoing oppression of people of color worldwide. Each book was a revelation, each fact another piece of evidence in the case against white supremacy. When he was released from prison in 1952, Malcolm Little was dead. He had replaced his surname with an X, symbolizing the African name that slavery had stolen from his ancestors. He was now Malcolm X, a minister in the Nation of Islam, and he would become its most powerful voice. Malcolm's speaking ability was extraordinary. He could hold an audience spellbound, whether addressing dozens in a small temple or thousands in an auditorium. His speeches were logical, passionate, and uncompromising. He spoke the truths that others were afraid to say. Where Martin Luther King Jr. preached nonviolence and integration, Malcolm preached self-defense and black pride. We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary. The white media portrayed him as frightening and dangerous. To many black Americans, especially young people in the urban North, he was a hero who refused to bow down. He didn't ask white people for rights. He demanded them. He didn't preach patience. He called out injustice by its name. Malcolm rose quickly through the nation's ranks, founding temples across the country. He became the public face of the organization, appearing on radio and television, debating at universities, and giving interviews to major publications. The nation's membership grew from a few hundred to tens of thousands, largely due to Malcolm's efforts. But success bred tension. Malcolm's fame overshadowed that of Elijah Muhammad, creating jealousy within the organization. When President Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963, Malcolm described it as chickens coming home to roost, suggesting that America's history of violence had rebounded on itself. Elijah Muhammad, seeking to distance the nation from such controversial statements, silenced Malcolm for 90 days. During that silence, Malcolm realized he was being pushed out. He learned of Elijah Muhammad's extramarital affairs and children born out of wedlock, shocking revelations given the nation's strict moral code. In March 1964, Malcolm left the Nation of Islam. It was a painful break from the organization and beliefs that had given him purpose for 12 years. But Malcolm didn't stop. He founded Muslim Mosque, Inc. and the Organization of Afro-American Unity, seeking to broaden the civil rights struggle and connect it with anti-colonial movements in Africa and Asia. More importantly, he embarked on a pilgrimage to Mecca. In Saudi Arabia, Malcolm experienced his second major transformation. Performing the Hajj alongside Muslims of every race and nationality, he saw true brotherhood. He prayed beside men with blonde hair and blue eyes and felt no hatred, only fellowship. He wrote to his followers, "Never have I witnessed such sincere hospitality and overwhelming spirit of true brotherhood as is practiced by people of all colors and races here in this ancient Holy Land." He returned to America as El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. His perspective fundamentally changed. He no longer believed that all white people were devils. He understood that the problem was racism and capitalism, systems that could be fought by people of all races working together. But his commitment to black liberation remained absolute. He still believed in self-defense, in black pride, in the necessity of confronting oppression without apology. This new Malcolm was perhaps more dangerous to the status quo than ever. He was building international coalitions, speaking at universities, and articulating a vision of human rights that transcended the civil rights framework. He was also a marked man. The Nation of Islam viewed him as a traitor. His house was firebombed while his family slept inside. He received death threats daily. On February 21, 1965, Malcolm X arrived at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem to speak to the Organization of Afro-American Unity. His wife, Betty Shabazz, sat in the audience with their 4 daughters. As Malcolm began his speech, a disturbance erupted in the crowd. While attention was distracted, 3 men rushed the stage. 16 bullets struck Malcolm down. He was pronounced dead at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital at 3:30 p.m. He was 39 years old. 3 men, all members of the Nation of Islam, were convicted of his murder, though questions about the full truth of his assassination persist to this day. Malcolm X didn't live to see the full impact of his work, but his influence only grew after his death. The Black Power movement drew directly from his teachings. His autobiography, written with Alex Haley and published posthumously, became one of the most influential books of the 20th century. His speeches continue to inspire activists fighting for justice around the world. He was a man of extraordinary contradictions, a criminal who became a scholar, a preacher of racial separation, who evolved toward universal brotherhood, a man of anger who spoke with precision and intelligence. But more than anything, Malcolm X was a man who never stopped growing, never stopped questioning, never stopped fighting for what he believed was right. "Don't be in a hurry to condemn because he doesn't do what you do or think as you think or as fast," he once said. There was a time when you didn't know what you know today. Malcolm X's life was a testament to the power of transformation, the necessity of truth-telling, and the courage required to evolve even when evolution is dangerous. He showed that a person is not defined by where they start, but by their willingness to learn, to change, and to stand up for justice, no matter the cost.